time for the Dog and Pauly podcast on FingerLakes1.com, featuring Harold Webb Dog Weber and Paul Helstrom.
The weather is changing, a little cooler. Talking low of 30s this weekend. The next 2 days, we're talking near 80. It is time on October 3rd, 2012, for another edition of the Dog and
Pauly Show.
As we bring our good guest in, our favorite guest, Rod Verkey, as he prepares for the big night coming up for the Mynderse Academy Sports Hall of Fame this coming Saturday night. We'll talk in depth about that. We'll get his opinion on the baseball world. And, of course, we'll always pick on him about Doug Marrone. I couldn't help but look across and ask him. He has this position that Doug is the answer at Syracuse. I have, of course, some more data to prove to Rod that he's not the answer, losing to feeble Minnesota Gophers. We'll get to all that. And we'll ask Rod if a loss to Pittsburgh and the fact that they may go bowless for 2 years in a row, whether that would be grounds enough for him to be hitchhiked out of town. So, Rod, good morning to you. Welcome to our show. It's usual. You're always great to be to come in here and not put up with our harassment, but it's good to have you here anyway. So.
Always good to be here, Harold.
And Rod Verkey's got a lot to talk about. I know his big night is coming up in a long, but we got to first ask our buddy here, Johnny Carson. I've been referring to him as he's taken lots of vacation time, which he's entitled to since he's 73 going on 90. My good buddy Pauly Helstrom. Pauly, you and Helen went, thanks to the kids, to Cape Cod. Give us a brief description of how your trip went.
If you spend an evening, you'll want to stay watching the rain fall in old Cape Cod Bay. Yeah, it was a great trip. In between the raindrops and everything, yeah, we got to do what you do when you go there. We got on a bus and went to Nantucket. We got on a boat and went to Martha's Vineyard, and we ate like champions that we are, and it was a great trip. Every one of my family's been there, and some of them been there more than once, and they told me I was the last piece in the puzzle. So we went up there and did it. Helen had a great time. I had a great time, and we took some good pictures. And it was very nice, very relaxing.
That's good. Well, certainly. And you and Helen are celebrating your 50 years of marriage?
50 years.
When is that going to hit?
That's December 1st.
Wow, 50 years. Well, me and Mary will have 47 if we're still together in May 7th of next year. I think we will be. But that'll be 47. That's quite a milestone. She's going right to heaven, that girl. You know it, Verk.
She should, yeah.
She's going right to heaven.
And I know where you're going.
No, I'm going to spend a year or two in purgatory. Then the Lord will decide where I end up going. Okay, lots to talk about. Let's turn our attention, if we may. Rod Verkey's our guest for the full hour this morning. We certainly need to talk about baseball. They say baseball can be a boring game, but I guess with when you've played 161 of 162 games, there's still doubt. And what an amazing comeback. My wife is still dancing this morning with the Yankees coming back, trailing 3-1 in the bottom of the ninth last night at Yankee Stadium amidst a sleet of rain, a continuation of rain, which they got the game in, obviously. And Raul Ibanez, Philadelphia Philly cast off. The Yankees picked him up. Comes up, Verk, and hits a two-run homer to tie it up. And the Yankees end up winning it in 12. What an amazing comeback.
That's one of those decisions that the manager made, and it came through for him.
Yeah.
No matter who you put in, they can't hit the ball. But Raul has been pretty clutch all year.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled last night. I was watching with my son Duke.
Right.
And you get to the ninth, and we haven't had a good record in the ninth
right.
trailing.
Right.
And, they came through and went into extra innings, and Raul came through again.
The happiest guy in the clubhouse, Paul, if you watch the game, was Mark Teixeira. Mark, of course, coming back from the calf injury just a night earlier, who hit a prodigious home run in their opening game victory when they coasted on Monday night against the Red Sox, winning 10-2. Teixeira hit one, 440 feet. Well, last night he had one of those nights that I guess Major League players, incredible as they are, the superstars, you get those nights. First and third early on in the game, one out. Yankees are notorious for not getting the run in from third, Verk, as you know, and as Paul knows. What's he do? Ground ball, double play. A couple innings later, first and third, one out. Who's at the plate? Mark Teixeira, double play. Oh, it gets better. Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Game tied 3-3. Teixeira at the plate. They bring the outfield in. And all they need is a medium, as you know, Verk, a fly ball like medium, not deep, just medium. Not quite exactly. A little short pop-up to center field, doesn't get the run in. So Teixeira, no doubt, is shaking his head going, you know, you have nights like that, Verk, and I guess he's the happiest guy. The Yankees pulled it out.
Well, Teixeira, as you know, is a horse for the Yankees.
Yep.
He's had some injuries, and nobody tries harder than he does.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking for myself, I feel much better with him at first base because
Right.
he does a lot of other
Defense.
things.
Oh, yeah.
Even though the Swish came in and did a great job
Yeah.
at first.
Right.
And watch Teixeira when they get to these playoff things and stuff. I think he's going to be there.
Well, let's take a look at what we have this morning. With one game to go in the regular season, it breaks out like this. The Yankees, of course, are one game up with one to play against Baltimore. So obviously, let's talk about time of these games. Both games, Verk and Paul, start at 7 o'clock, 7:05 to be exact. The Yankees still at home, wrapping up their series. Kuroda goes tonight for the Yankees. A Yankee win would give them the division, and they would have home field, even though they would have to start on the road in one of those series, home field throughout, except, of course, if they make it to the World Series. As you know, Verk, the National League won the All-Star game, thus they have the home field in the World Series. So you talk about a big game for the Yankees. They win, they have home field, even though there's one series, I don't know if it's the American League Championship Series or what series that is, they start on the road, but they would have the odd game in their stadium. A Yankee loss tonight and a Baltimore win at Tampa Bay sets up an interesting scenario. They would play a one-game playoff tomorrow in Baltimore to decide who's the division winner and who has to go play a one-game wild card on Friday. So that's potentiality is there. And how about James Shields for Tampa last night? Losing to Baltimore, final score 1-0. You think Shields did okay for Tampa to try to make the Yankees coast home? Shields strikes out 15, gives up 2 hits, and loses 1-0. You can't say Verkey didn't try to beat the Orioles last night. One mistake.
I think it was Davis
hit the one deep center.
And that was 6 games in a row that he's got the
Exactly.
A home run.
Amazing. So you got to give credit to Joe Madden. He's not playing his minor league team like the Red Sox did on Monday night when they played nobody. It looked like a AAA team. It looked like a Newark Pilot roster. So that's the scenario with the Yankees and Orioles tonight. And, of course, it could happen. We'll see what happens. And Texas and Oakland, surprisingly, Oakland, who's not drawing flies for fans out there, it's amazing, have made a miraculous comeback. They have won the first 2 games against Texas. If they beat Texas tonight, the same scenario takes place. They would be tied. They would have a one-game playoff tomorrow. I'm not sure if it's in Texas or in Oakland. And so the whole scenario would start up again. So you talk about an amazing American League. A lot to look for tonight, Verk and Pauly. A lot of interest in baseball with one to go. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking forward to checking it out tonight. Should be interesting.
This double wild card thing is
interesting,
drawing a lot of interest and more suspense, and I think that's what it's for, is for the fans to be interested at the end of the year.
Yep.
You got more teams that are involved and thus more interest, and I think it's a good thing so far.
It has been. As far as the National League, it is.
Harold,
yeah, go ahead, Pauly.
On the American League, before you jump in, I just
Sure.
there's a couple scenarios playing out here.
Right.
With the Oakland team, this is the comeback of Moneyball.
Yep.
This is another team with underachievers. Not say underachievers, under-payrolled people who will get more money if they win the World Series this year and do all that. That's one incident. And I'd like to also go back to Baltimore. I'd like to give a lot of credit to Buck Showalter, what he's done with those, making believers out of those players. There was a game, I think it was August, the end of August.
Right.
Baltimore was playing not somebody from the division, Minnesota Twins.
Right.
They drew 9,800 people to Camden Yards. The Yankees came in next weekend. They drew 40 plus. That's what you have to work against when you're in these markets that he's in. But Buck Showalter did a heck of a job getting these kids to believe in themselves this year. I mean, in those close games, what are they, 29-9 and one-run games or something like that? And Rod went back to the fact that the Yankees were 0 for 58 in the ninth inning with winning run or on base till that home run last night. I mean, these things, these numbers add up. But I think that the excitement that's promoting, plus the National League is exciting too, gave the NFL a little we're not quite swung over to football yet.
Right.
We're still interested in baseball because it's America's game. But the key is football's been going through some ugly things early on with the officiating and the way the games are coming to be. I watched Tommy Coughlin get on TV, and he took the blame for this loss, saying he ran the wrong play before the – but what it's come to be in the NFL this year, and I'm just watching every game come down to the last minute with a field goal kicker coming out there and a coach on the other side of the ball calling a timeout, running out on the field, and he kicks it through and it's no good. And then the other guy calls timeout, and then somebody flinches on the offensive side of the ball, and it goes back 5 yards, and then somebody charges across. It takes like 10, 15 minutes for that last field goal. I think 5 or 6 of the games came down to a field goal, one way or the other. And it's I guess it's exciting, but this is the parity they wanted in the NFL. So now you got it. You got Green Bay at 500. You got teams at 500 and above.
How much money would you have put down with you and Helen taking out your money chest and all that money you have underneath your bed from Holy Communion? I think you still have your first quarter from Holy Communion, don't you, in the white envelope?
Sure.
But how much money would you have laid in Las Vegas where gambling is legal that New Orleans would be 0-4 through 4? Think about it.
Or the Arizona Cardinals would be 4-0.
I don't care if Rod Verkey's coaching them. Sean Payton's on the sidelines for the year, but 0-4 with Drew Brees, pretty amazing.
It is hard to believe.
Pretty amazing.
Guys. And he doesn't do any blocking or tackling.
0-4. I mean, he's still got great receivers. He's still got a good ball club. They got Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and they're 0-4. It's pretty scary to think about it. And like you say, Arizona's playing tomorrow night. Thursday Night Football against the Rams, Scotty Trickler's favorite team. But let's go back to baseball for a second. The National League is decided. My God, Washington has not been, Verkey, you're a trivia master, 1933, the last time I believe they were in a playoff scenario. Of course, they've had different franchises in that area. But the Washington Nationals, even though I don't agree with the Strasburg decision, and I think you and me both agree, play this kid. I'm sorry, it's stupid, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But Washington is wrapped up. Cincinnati, Mike French, Waterloo, has been a long-time Reds fan, Mike.
Yep.
And now he's got to be smiling ear to ear. And, of course, the San Fran Giants. They lose Cabrera for the 50-game suspension for drugs, but they're right there. They're solid. They've easily won their division. The wild cards have been determined. St. Louis Cardinals got in. They're officially now in. And Atlanta. Leslie Ullman, who's a sponsor of our show and who was co-owner of the New York Pilots, as myself and Jimmy know her quite well, and Paul's met her a few times. She's happy as Atlanta and Chipper Jones on his farewell tour will be in the playoffs. And so the Dodgers, who spent, led by Magic Johnson, $2.2 billion for the franchise, and they took a huge number of contracts with Beckett and you name it, Gonzalez and everybody else. It didn't quite work out this year. They are falling short, and they're going to sit home and not make the playoffs. So, if you look at the scope of who owns those teams, I don't think they're worried about the money aspect of it, Verk. But it's got to be somewhat disappointing for the West Coast LA Dodgers. But
it is. And it was proven last year that during the season you might have a good record or whatever.
Right.
But St. Louis getting in on the last day of the season.
Exactly.
And then making the run through, it does become a whole new season. Anybody
it does.
could win this thing.
And I've never been a big Bud Selig fan. I've always thought the guy should have retired 10 years ago. But I got to say one thing, whether it was his idea or the owner's idea to put the second wild card in, it has had tremendous interest. A couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, there were 18 teams in Major League Baseball vying for that second spot. Pretty amazing.
Can't beat it. TV's got to love it, and the owners got to like the competition and the extra revenue it's going to bring in.
So anyways, folks, if you're a baseball nut, tonight's the night. If you got plans with your girlfriend or wife, cancel them. Sorry, they'll make up to you. You can maybe buy them roses tomorrow or something. But I would definitely get to a big screen TV. Check out the action. Oh, by the way, if you have Time Warner and you're able to get all these weird channels, you got one of those boxes, which I have tons of them in my apartment, you'll be able to watch back and forth. Yankees and the Oriole game goes at 7 o'clock on the Yes Network. That's channel 47 here in Seneca Falls. You also can put on picture-in-picture channel 238, which is Major League Baseball Network, and that'll be showcasing the Tampa-Baltimore game. So you can keep pitch by pitch, both starting same time. You can exactly follow both games as the games progress. So
they must be paying you pretty good because I can only afford one TV.
Oh, I got 5. I've got 8 rooms in our apartment. I got 5 TVs. There's not a room that I can't go into where I can't access television. I got to have the TV. It's got to be a man cave for me. So anyways, tonight is going to be a great night to watch baseball. And again, Yankees win. Adios, amigo. They will have control except for the World Series. And that, of course, is pivotal because you don't want to get into a situation where they got to go to Baltimore for a one-game playoff tomorrow. Yes, they're still in the playoff picture, but if they lose tomorrow to Baltimore, assuming that happens, they would have a one-game playoff on Friday.
Well, and that messes up your pitching rotation for when you want to get into the playoffs.
Yep.
So this could be a big factor.
So it's going to be interesting. So tonight's going to be the great night for baseball. Now, let's turn our attention to the world of football. We're going to talk to Verkey about the big event coming up Saturday at the New York Chiropractic College, but we got to get Verk's opinion on the world of college football. Would not have you in here without we talk a little about college. It appears like Alabama and Oregon appear to be the best two teams in the country, the way they're running up scores. Your opinion thus far? Alabama appears to be yet another lock for the national championship?
Well, if I was the Giants, I wouldn't want to play Alabama. They look very good to me. They're strong at every position. I'm not a big Nick Saban fan.
Right.
But just as far as their program and the kids they bring in, outstanding. The freshman running back they got, he could start in a lot of pro football teams right now.
Yeah, I know. Pretty amazing. And Oregon just runs up and down the field. They got those wacky uniforms, but they can score points. Yes. And we shouldn't forget that years ago, myself, John Scanlon, Dennis Coggins, and Don Plord, Don, of course, is no longer with us. He's in heaven. We used to make an annual trip out to South Bend. This is going back several years, tons of years. I think we did it 4 or 5 years in a row. And we would load up Don Plord's RV, and he had a huge RV, and we would drive out. And that's when Lou Holtz was coaching there, Verk. And we would get there on Friday to make sure we didn't miss the luncheon with Holtz, who's probably the best speaker of all time, with his one-liners. And that was Pauly, 3,400 people go to Notre Dame for lunch on Friday before the game. I mean, it was packed. And we always got tickets. Amazing.
Then they always had the pep rally.
Amazing. The band come through the doors. It was incredible. But I recall going out there, I think we did it 6 or 7 years in a row. And I think 2 of those trips, they used to bill the game as the Catholics versus the convicts. Here comes Miami of Florida. And, of course, the Catholics, obviously, a reference to Notre Dame. And the convicts, let's guess who they're referring to, the Miami Hurricanes. Well, they kind of get together this week. They're going to play in Chicago, and I believe it's a Saturday night game on prime time. Notre Dame favored by 13 over Miami, and I don't know how you feel, but to me, it's kind of nice to see Notre Dame in the national picture. Verk, whether they stay there remains to be seen, but it's kind of nice after a few weeks to see them 9th or 10th in the polls, and, of course, a big showdown against the team that hates them, and they don't like them very well either. Should be a good one.
Well, Notre Dame's back in the spotlight again.
Yep.
They've taken a little time off and
they're
back together. And, of course, they're going to the ACC for football. And I think they've found out that it's going to be, and I don't necessarily like this, but it's going to be 4 super conferences in the United States.
Uh-huh.
It's funny how this thing has evolved into this, but even Notre Dame, who has its own TV show, its own football program, is now going into the ACC. I think they see the writing on the wall that they got to get into one of these conferences.
Kind of funny too, Paul. You can speak on this. The ACC had a ironclad rule that if you're bringing your team into their conference, you come in all or nothing. Notre Dame says we'll come in, but we're not going to give you the entire football program. We're going to piecemeal it. And they said, okay. Kind of funny, Verk. It depends on who's asking, right?
Yeah, Notre Dame still has a little leverage.
Yeah, I was going to say. So anybody else, they would have said, catch up buzzers, 1 leaving and 20 be under it. But the Irish, of course, get a pass, and I guess we'll have to see. But it is kind of good for me, and I pick on Johnny Capacci, who's a friend of yours, Verk, a very close friend of yours. He's on your committee as well, I believe, for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I was talking to him about Notre Dame yesterday.
There you go. And I know Johnny, a graduate of Notre Dame, and Charlie Schaefer, the famed legal mind in Seneca County. I've always been picking on them when they've had off years, but you got to give credit where credit is due, and they're, of course, primed now to make a run for potentiality, if they were to run the table, to be a factor at the end of the year. They obviously can't trip up. That's the key with Notre Dame. Okay, a discussion that you and me had. Of course, you always enjoy talking about Doug Marrone and Syracuse University football. I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't talk to you a little bit about that. The last time we were here, you defended Marrone, and you and Jimmy kind of ganged up on me and said it was a great move, bringing a former star back as a head coach. You thought that was a good thing. And I reminded you that the data points weren't working in yours and Jimmy's favor and that they needed to win using the Al Davis line, just win, baby. Since you and me have been together the last time, they went out and played a feeble Gopher team, which is kind of, I love it when they say the Big Ten. It's really called the Little Ten.
They're undefeated, Harold. They're not feeble.
The Gophers?
How many times I got to tell you that?
The Gophers are a horrible team. Trust me, they're a horrible team. Let me tell you, the Gophers, Jimmy, are not going to, where are they ranked in the top 25? They're not. That's my point. Okay, Verk, talk a little bit about the loss to Minnesota, and are you convinced he's still your man at Syracuse? And let's just hypothetically say they don't make a bowl game this year for the second year in a row. Is your opinion changed whatsoever with Marrone?
No, I'm not throwing him under the bus. And since you brought up Oakland Raiders, just win, baby.
Just win, baby.
What's their record?
Not very good.
Okay.
Not very good.
Are you throwing them under the bus?
I have. They're my team. They're my team. I have a right to throw them under the bus.
So you're kind of a typical American fan.
I am.
If your team doesn't win, you
goodbye.
Get rid of them.
Right. Okay.
I can't do that. And Syracuse has been, a highlight around here for years and
Sure.
years. And you can't guarantee everything every year.
Okay.
And the assistant coach there was my quarterback in college.
Right.
So I'm certainly not going to throw him under the bus for that. They're doing all they can do.
Okay.
I think they have the people in the right spots. They do make some very obvious, glaring, awful mistakes.
That was quite a few adjectives. Okay.
Which is, I
pretty
got a
good.
lot of them.
Mynderse Academy grad. I like that. Yeah.
2 games this year have been hurt just by playing mental mistakes.
Right.
They could very easily have been much better with 2 more wins.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the recruiting is getting out there. They're getting some kids locally that are going there. The kid from Rush Henrietta. Somewhere that New York is not a hotbed of recruiting for football.
Right.
When you get a good one, I think you got to go after them, and they've done that. But I'm still not going to dump them. I'm going to stay behind them, and I think it's a good thing when your university can hire back people that have played for you before. They know what your university is all about. If you look at the basketball team,
right.
I think Syracuse was the only team in the nation, Division I, that had all of its assistants and coach all our alumni.
Mm-hmm. So Isn't that amazing, though? Wouldn't you think that, you know, more schools would do that? It's like, you know, why would you look elsewhere outside your own program for someone to run your programs? I think that's a huge recruiting tool for Syracuse, too, because for football and basketball, because as they're out recruiting, they're telling these recruits, you know, come play for Syracuse. I did. You know, and the other coaches, you know, they went to school elsewhere, and I think that's a huge advantage. And I am surprised, especially in basketball, that more schools don't have alumni coaching their teams. So I think that's something special about Syracuse.
Yeah, I respect your comments. I'm still convinced he's not the answer. My dad approves that I'm right so far. And I believe that I know the George Jones and the Billy Ryans, who are diehard SU fans, they're getting a little antsy. And they are the ultimate fans. Jimmy graduated from there. The other ultimate fans, and they have some doubts on Doug Marrone. They have doubts because they say it's his 4th year. The excuse library is being used up a little bit too much after all these losses. And all they're saying is, we want to see results. And to your point, Verk, I respect your comments, and you may be right. My issue with Jimmy is the other day we were talking about it. Naismith is going bye-bye. He's one of the best passers statistically in the country. He's out of here after this year. Here we go again. Now we're going to have another, 2 or 3 year program where we got to start somebody who has been playing football for SU for the last few years. We're going to start over. The kid, and Jim points out, the new kid may have great talents that Naismith doesn't show us.
I guess I got to say that is Todd Philcox.
Right.
McNabb leaves and Philcox comes in. They go 10-2 and win a bowl game, and then he has a 10-year NFL career.
Right.
Syracuse has a guy, Charlie Loeb, that's been sitting behind him for 3 years, similar to Philcox. But we also got young talent like Terrell Hunt and Ashton Broiled, possibly, and 2 new recruits. So good programs start to reload, and Marrone has this program now where good recruits, you know, high-level recruits are starting to come in every year. So now I just think he needs to learn how to manage the game. You know, I think he does a good job of managing the program, but now on the field he needs to manage the game.
Well, we'll see. Again, this will be an ongoing discussion with us, no doubt about it. And I certainly will be smiling if I'm right, and you'll be smiling if you're right. If Marrone turns it around, I'll be the first to admit that. I just don't see it. And if you were the athletic director at Syracuse and had Gross's job, you have to have a little bit of concern in the back of your mind. Where's this program going? And Marrone himself last week admitted something which I was surprised to hear. I'm in my 4th year. I need better results. He said that.
He's a realist.
I mean, he's a realist.
And
I mean, he realizes that
you got to believe that nobody is unhappier than he is
Right.
about the situation.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a lack of effort.
Sure.
His staff, they're preparing, they're
Right.
recruiting, they're doing all the things you have to do.
Right.
And sometimes you get some potential athletes that don't really turn out the way they're
Exactly.
supposed to. And some of them are a little lacking, I think, in the brains department when it comes down to crucial plays, not covering a fumble and
Yeah.
things like that. But
it's going to be interesting. Well, we'll continue our
keep
dialogue.
in mind before
Yep.
we get off this
Sure.
topic that I thought the Northwestern game was a huge game for Syracuse program with the schedule they had coming up, and
Right.
they blow that, but they showed they had a lot of talent. They play with USC.
Right.
They beat Stony Brook at home, and then they look awful against Minnesota, but still only lose by 4 points. Was it 14-10? I think
17-10.
17.
Yeah.
So none of that even matters because they play their first conference game
Right.
Friday
Oh,
night
I agree.
against Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
now beat Pittsburgh
Yeah.
and have a shot to win the Big East and
Right.
go to the BCS.
Well, I
So
agree.
their season goals are still intact, but lose to Pittsburgh Friday night. And you better be prepared for 7,000 people at their next home game, and everybody is going to be turned into basketball, which is less than a month away because we, of course, have another top 5 team.
Well, Jimmy, we talked about the numbers game. Verk's aware of it as well. You got to win 5 of your next 8 to be bowl eligible. And obviously, you have Rutgers, which is playing sensational football, a legitimate top 25 team. I mean, they went in Arkansas. Granted, Arkansas's got issues. They destroyed them. They win by 9. They're underdogs by 10. They end up winning that game by 8. They look like a good ball club. Louisville's in the 18th in the country. So what my point is, as Jim points out, you got to have this Pittsburgh game, obviously, Friday night on ESPN. It's got to be on the win column. It has to be.
yeah, and not for nothing.
Right.
Earlier in the season, if I was the Syracuse AD, I
Right.
wouldn't have scheduled Southern Cal.
Ah,
I think that was too early in the season for that game to come on, and too much was riding on that first 4 games to jeopardize that. But I'm pretty sure that was set up well in advance. And
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's
They
a
were
good
originally
test
supposed to play in the Carrier Dome, and then they moved it away. But
It's going to be interesting.
you couldn't have record-wise, you couldn't have had a worse start. 3-1 was our worst-case scenario. I
Yeah.
mean, sure, you could lose. Stony Brook would be 0-4.
Oh.
I'm 1-3. Excuse me.
And they would blow the dome up with losing a Stony
But
Brook.
and Stony Brook is not a bad team.
No, they're not.
no, but you don't get credit for beating Stony Brook, and you get lambasted if you happen to lose. But yeah, Stony Brook would beat a lot of low to mid-level Division I teams.
And to make this discussion, and we're going to get off it and take a commercial break and get back and talk about the Section 5. Verk's big night, the Mynderse Academy Hall of Fame. Pittsburgh coming to town. ESPN covered 7 o'clock, or I think it's 7 o'clock, Jimmy, Friday night, or 8 o'clock. I don't know if it's 7 or 8.
7:30,
Whatever. But
7:30.
hey, the Vegas odds makers favor Pittsburgh by 2.5, which is ironically. So they don't even give Syracuse any respect at home, which I found ironic. So the gambling money is on Pittsburgh. You figured that one out. It opened at 3. I think it's at 2.5 this morning. Well, let's not deal with generalities here. Let's deal with facts, as Verk likes to have here. We like to have facts here. Let's see here. 2.5. Pittsburgh favored. So the odds makers don't think they're going to win. We'll see. But that odds makers have been wrong before. So we'll see what happens. This is a Doug and Pauly show. Our friend Rod Verkey's in the house. We're going to talk about the big night. We're going to talk to Pauly about Vroom Vroom Danica update. We're going to talk about racing. I know Paul's got a lot of comments to make about Brad Keselowski. Is he going to be the champion of the NASCAR circuit? We got a whole lot more. And plus, we got a major announcement to make, too, about this show. We're going to take this break and talk about the Deluxe Restaurant. First off, Pauly, I was there with Mary the other night. I told you and Helen the other day when I was up to see you. Fabulous. Didn't have a reservation. Got me in. Mary 20 minutes later. Fabulous meal. We tried the Delmonico 8-ounce steak. Delightful. Delightful.
Good.
Charlie was in a good mood, as usual.
Yeah, well, that was before the Giants lost. But we'll see where it goes now. I mean, being a season-long fan of the Mets and then going to a game like that, like Rod said, comes down to the last 30 to 90 seconds.
Yeah.
The last portion of this show I would like to entitle 1, Prejudice, 2, Biased, 3, Informed. If I had to look at one guy and talk about the Syracuse program, he's a graduate, he's a detractor. He's been a coach. He's been a player in the NFL. If I'm going to want to find out how something works, boy, you guys are just I mean, boy. Anyway, I want to just say this: would New Orleans be 0-4 if Peyton was coaching this year? Just I want to ask you that question as a player and a coach. Do you think that he could have won 2 games for them?
Is it possible? Sure. But you can't, as they say in baseball, too, if this guy had made the double play, this wouldn't have happened. You don't really know.
Yeah.
It still comes down to, and as a coach also, I believe, you can do whatever you can do, but the players still got to do it. And it makes it difficult. It's a good scenario, and it makes for good coffee banter, but you just never know.
And you have to have somebody to get rid of if the teams don't do well, and it's not going to be the players. So I always said this from time the kids get in high school to they move on through college and pro. I don't go to watch the refs ref.
Yep.
I don't go to watch the coaches coach. I go to watch the athletes play. So you can't go on the field. I think you might have said something like that early in the hunt, like that. Sorry about that.
No,
I just had to get in. You guys were just, I feel sorry for him that he's got to answer some of the things you throw at him. I mean, the guy.
Verk would not expect anything less than that.
God bless your patience, right? I'll tell you, you're a good man. But anyway, things are going really good at the Deluxe. Yeah, it's a heck of a season for Charlie, the fall season. It's our busiest time of year, and we're just going berserk up there. Yeah, and it helps to have a guy like Charlie running a restaurant up there because everybody goes in there and the recognition, the familiarization, and the customers have a good relationship with them, and we get little thank you notes. I mean, how many people do that anymore? Send you a thank you note for serving them a great meal. That becomes,
that's great.
So we're in a good spot, and of course we're always looking, to improve. And if but Charlie just wants to say he was enjoyed being a sponsor of the show, and he's tried to get it and listen to it a few times. He's not a high-tech guy, but he's finally saw us one week, and he said that wasn't much an improvement. Jimmy could have kept it audio. He said Harold didn't get any better looking, and I still got the same cowlick I had in 1953. So, and I don't have the quarter from my Holy Communion, but I have the Mynderse calendar watch. That was big back in 1952. Go ahead.
I was 7 in 1952. Listen, if I didn't go back and forth with Verk and ask you, this would be a boring show. Verk expects it, and he's going to have the last laugh if they turn it around, and I might have the last laugh if they don't. Marshall's Auto Sales on Routes 5 and 20, our good friend Dick Marshall, who I'm definitely going to stop over and see in the next day or so. We got a chit-chat. Of course, 40 years in business. I see he's got a bunch of cars out there, maybe 5 or 6. I drove by yesterday. Been around 40 years. Me and Verk remember Dick, the old days of Marinos, when Dick used to stop in. That's when he was poor and a nobody. Now he's got some money and he owns his own car dealership. But Dick Marshall's got some nice cars in the lot. If you have a interest for a car for your mom, or your grandma, your daughter, your son heading off to school, or they're already at school, but they may have a problem with a car, need another one, check out Dick Marshall's Auto Sales. Over 40 years in business. And I personally have taken my car, and I'm very anal about getting people to service my cars. And Tommy Thompson is the man. He gives you a quote, tells you when it's going to be, when he wants your car there. And when he tells you it's out of here, it's out of here. If it's an hour, it's an hour. It's not 3 hours. So can't say enough good things about Dick Marshall, even though him and my good friend Ted Flock continually hang on to GoDaddyGo.com. Danica Patrick, hoping that she's going to turn it around. And, of course, and we'll be talking about bashing her in a few minutes about another great weekend at Dover. So Dick Marshall, a great sponsor of our show, and we thank him for his continued support. Jimmy, it's October, it's golf season, but I know they're aerating the greens as of Monday, so that's always a time that members say, oh, but, Jim, with the new technology, the holes get sealed pretty quickly, not like the old days.
And it's also the fact that our superintendent, Doug McWhorter, does a good job of cleaning up after. I mean, last in the spring when he did it, it was two days.
Right.
And you're back to normal.
Right.
I mean, back to normal, pretty much.
Right.
So the other thing we're trying to push right now at Seneca Falls Country Club is holiday parties. You want to book a holiday party, call down there, 568-2676. Get it on the schedule. Chef John with some great food.
Sure.
And a great atmosphere down there, kind of away from the hustle and bustle in December. Anybody who had a holiday party down there last year was really pleased with it. So you might want to give a call there. And, of course, you can check out SenecaFallsCountryClub.com and, hey, why not get a membership for next year now, or maybe keep that in mind for a Christmas present?
Yeah, and if you join now, you can have it applied and play the rest of the year. There's still
Yeah, I
golf
mean,
to
there
play.
is still golf. We talk like it's over.
I know.
Today's October 2nd. Last year, we were golfing in November.
Yep.
The way the weather's been, but
Right.
got a whole nother month of golf. And, yes, if you join now on a half-year deal, everything that you pay comes off next year's membership. So,
Yeah, good deal.
a lot of good stuff.
And I was over at Lizards the other night. I'll be looking forward to spending some time there tomorrow night. It's one of my favorite hangouts up in Waterloo. Lizards, Scott Trickler, Lizards Tailgate Lounge, where the laughs are nonstop at the bar, Verkey. They're amazing, Scotty Trickler. It's a classic place. He has some classic clientele that goes in there, including myself. We pick, as Paul knows, we pick on everybody at the bar and have a good time. Play a little quick draw, donate some money to the education of the New York State citizens, which is, these kids ought to go to Harvard. Well, we've lost in quick draw, but always got specials every night. Of course, he's got bands. He's got trivia night. He's got it all working there. So check out Scott Trickler Lizards, who's a big, as Verk knows, a big St. Louis Ram fan. He still thinks the Rams still can come back and play good football, and they haven't played bad. They're going to be showcased tomorrow night on national TV on the NFL Network.
Got to look pretty hard to find a Rams fan around here.
Yeah, but he has been a diehard Rams fan forever, Scotty Trickler. So we thank Scotty for his sponsorship.
Anthony Bachman, another Rams fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All
fan.
right.
Since back in the days of Deacon Jones and stuff. I think that's where some of the local guys that like the Rams, they go back to that time.
And by the way, Omen Theater, Omens, Bob and Leslie Omen, of course. I don't know if they're still in the Carolinas or back east or where they're at, but of course the Omen Theater in Lyons, New York, a place that Verk and myself know quite well since I was born there, and I go over there quite a bit to see some friends. It's an amazing place. You got to go in there and check out the renovations they've done. They've turned it into a spectacular facility in our little quaint Lyons, which, by the way, Verk's talking about disillusion, huh? Talking about maybe being a town. Pretty scary.
Yeah, I don't get into that political
All right,
stuff
you
at
don't.
all. I got enough problems with you without getting into this political stuff.
What's playing at the Omen Theater, Jimmy? Got something going on there?
Something about the curve, the Clint Eastwood.
Ah, great movie. Mary said a couple. Sandy Lopez and I think Gene saw it. Clint Eastwood, Amy Adams, great flick. So definitely it's a must see for me and Mary. But the Omens, of course, the owners of the Newark Pilots and plus other enterprises, great supporters of this show, and certainly we want to remind them that we have a new head coach of the Newark Pilots. We had him on the air the other day, Mike Armstrong.
Yeah, if you want to meet Mike Armstrong, check out last week's Doug and Pauly show where he called in from California bright and early in the morning
6 a.m.
and filled us in on who he's signing out there. I guess they were working on some kids from Stanford.
Right.
So and that's really exciting that next summer in Newark you're going to watch baseball players from Stanford and Berkeley and Florida and Texas, and they all come and play a full 60-game season up here as part of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League. So Mike Armstrong, thank him for taking the time. And if you want to listen to that, go back in the archives. It's last week's show. We
couldn't figure out why he didn't take our call because he knew we were calling in, Verk, but you can appreciate this. He didn't. The first call went to voicemail. And I was telling Jimmy, geez, he called me yesterday. He said he was going to be ready at 9 a.m. I forgot, and I didn't realize he was in California, so at 6 o'clock their time. So
I didn't realize there was 2 6 o'clocks on the same clock.
That's right. Well, hey, by the way, let's talk a little bit about the show, the Doug and Pauly show, so you're not blindsided. Because of myself and because of what I've got working on the side and other commitments that I have had to deal with and going to deal with, the Doug and Pauly show will become history as of Halloween. We will do 4 more shows after today, and then we will put a curtain to this show. And with guys like Verk coming into the studio, it's sad for me to make that announcement, but I am of the opinion, whether Verk agrees with me about Doug Marrone or not, one thing I like to do is be prepared and put the time in to do shows of this nature, like the one I do on Mondays as well. I won't have the opportunity to do the commitment that I want to do. I've had a talk with Paul, went up to see him, and basically it's me making the decision. Paul certainly could have hooked up with somebody else if he wanted to, but as far as I'm concerned, I can't put the time and the effort into coming in Wednesdays to do this program anymore after this month of October. So to the viewers this morning and to people, if you're here around town, yes, it's true. We're going to put a wrap on the Doug and Pauly as of Halloween. It's sad because, Paul, we've done, 62 shows? And I remember sitting with you at pennies and asking you to come in and be a part of this. And I think for the most part, you've enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. It's I agree to disagree. And that's why I came on here with you. You know, it's up and down. It's black and white. It's right or wrong. And
you save some of our guests.
One thing about you, they know where you stand when you get done talking. Boy, I don't know. I would never move into the Syracuse area if I was you. In later years, I would never buy a home up there anywhere. I think you're on the 10 most wanted list. But it's been different. But like you say, I just listened. I've been around you for 40 years, and I just shake my head and say to myself, how can a guy make so many predictions and say so many things and be wrong so much and keep his job?
Yeah.
If I make 3 mistakes in a month, I'm gone from the Deluxe. I mean, I think most careers are like that anyway, so even in coaching. But anyway, no, it's been fun, and it wouldn't be the same without. It's basically your show. You just added on. You were nice enough to ask me to come on, and I really appreciated it. And I just especially when you have guests. It's always good to be around people like Rod.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's you and I, ba-ba. Then there's the quiet American who he unwinds all we said in 15 minutes with one informed sentence, you know. So I like these things. I like these things.
Well, it's the Rod Verkeys and the Joe Spazzatos and several, I guess, I don't know, tens and tens and tens of people that have been on the show. We've tried to bring in different walks of life. We've had people in on the show talking about Broadway musicals. We've had people in here talking about local 5Ks, charities, coaches, people who have done outstanding efforts. We try to get them in on the show either via over the phone or in person. But because of what I've got coming up and some stuff that I'm going to be doing in addition to, I'm still going to be affiliated with FingerLakes1.com unless Jim decides to get rid of me, and that's, of course, his call. But I'm still going to be doing Weber on Sports. Of course, what we are going to do on that show, which is aired every Monday mornings at 9:30, and I usually go on complaining about every topic, including Marrone, for 25 or 30 minutes every Monday. We're going to expand the show to 60 minutes on occasion to bring in guests. So what it does is allows me to focus in on one format versus two. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be on. We may not be doing it at 9:30 every Monday morning, but we certainly will be having Weber on Sports part of the FingerLakes1.com fiber until Jim decides that he wants to bring in Kenny's Two Pennies to take my spot. As far as basketball and doing special games, I certainly want to be a part of that, and I will play a role. I enjoyed working with Matt, of course, Rod's son, last year in the 3 games that we did. It's pretty nice to look over and have a commentator that was voted the best player in the state of New York in 1992, so it's encouraging. So there's a lot going on, and I'm still going to be around. It's just not like I'm not going to just depart forever, but I decided that I couldn't put the time and the effort in doing the show, and I want to make sure that our viewers and the word gets around town that the Dog and Pauly will wrap up. I won't be here the next 2 weeks because I have got commitments. We'll be back on the 24th. Of course, Paul will be in the next 2 weeks with Jimmy doing cooking or whatever they're going to decide to do on the next 2 Wednesdays. But we'll be back the 24th and the 31st to put a wrap on it.
Well, I want to transition this to some iteration of Paul Helstrom, Rod Verkey, and Joe Spazzato. Rod says he's not interested already, but I think that if we could get him up here at least once a month.
Hey, I think it'd be great. Him and Spazzato could be like Weber and Verkey going at it. It'd be worse, probably.
A lot of people think that Joe and I are twins. We're not.
Well, stature-wise, you're not.
Right. Remember the movie Twins?
Yeah.
Well, I think that one thing that I'll miss about not having this show on Wednesday mornings is the ability for us to bring in high school coaches and players and, keep pace on what's going on locally at the high school level. Yeah. So I'd like to work with Joe or Rod or Paul to somehow make that happen, but that's a discussion maybe for another time. We still have four Doug and Pauly shows left.
Exactly, after today. But all right, let's turn our attention. Wanted to make sure that announcement got out this morning. Let's talk about the big night. I know I along with Jimmy, being graduates of Mynderse Academy, having been out of town the previous 2 ceremonies, weren't able to get there to see the festivities, but we will be there, not only as MA graduates, Verk, we'll be there broadcasting it on FingerLakes1.com. I know you're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to being at the college on Saturday night. Give us an overview of a little timing aspect of when it gets the doors open and what's going on as far as the schedule. And we'll talk about the inductees.
Well, it starts on Friday night.
Okay.
We have an informal get-together at the SMS for people that are coming in from out of town.
Right.
Our theory on this, and this is something that we added last year, we try and improve every year on what we're doing.
Sure.
And if people are coming into town for the Saturday night event, they're going to be here Friday anyway. And it worked out very well last year. It gives us a informal setting so these people can meet each other. It's not such a formal night as the night after that. That's worked out very well. On Saturday, the doors open at 5 o'clock. We have a social hour, which we've expanded. The first year we had it for 45 minutes, and I couldn't get everybody out of the social thing to get in to get them to eat. So we expanded that a little bit. And 6:30 we eat, and 7:30 starts the program.
Perfect.
And as you mentioned, we are having the podcast this year.
Right.
We've added 3 new things this year, so we're trying to get a little better and add something for the people each time. This podcast, I think, will work out very well. Mm-hmm. We'll evaluate it as we always do afterwards. We may have to get rid of some people, but we'll evaluate it. But we have members of the Hall of Fame in Texas, California, Florida, North Carolina.
Perfect.
Our main goal is to encourage these people to come back every year so that they can meet the new people and they can meet them. Right. And if you can't, though, this will give us a opportunity so that they can see it at home no matter where they are. So we think this is a good thing. The second thing we added was an achievements page in our program. And what we're trying to do there is give a bridge from the older people, because that's what we're working on here, is people in the past, and give them a bridge to the current Mynderse Academy and let them know that Mynderse Academy is alive and well. So we put all the achievements of last year's senior class on there, which were many, and I'm not going to go into them right now. Probably the most important thing to me on that page is we have 10 scholar athlete teams on that, which is just outstanding. And then what's the third thing?
It's okay. It's called age.
Yes, it is.
We've all been in there. I do it all the time.
Title IX.
The most important thing.
Yep.
I don't know how many people saw the article last night.
Very good.
It was excellent. She's done a good job with that.
Yep.
This occurred because of a series of events. We had a couple nominations of people that didn't really qualify for our Hall of Fame. There was no sports back then for the girls. There was no organized school-to-school stuff. And then we got this recommendation for Angie Bonavanis and Hazel Westfall. Great criteria, great information, great statistics, but we really had no spot. So then, this being the 40th anniversary of Title IX, we kind of linked that all together, put some time in on it, and came up with this new part of our Hall of Fame, and what's going to continue in the future. And I think it's a really good thing. There's 2 people that certainly deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
It's awesome.
That now have a entry into it, and worked out real well. The article in the paper last night.
Yeah, sensational.
Yeah.
And let's just run down quickly, of course, opening remarks by Rod. McKevney, the superintendent, will have a greeting. They'll do an induction video. Then a special Title IX presentation. Hazel Reynolds, Westfall, and Angie, is it Bonavanis? Bonavanis. Of course, Liz Beck will have some words to say about her.
Yep.
And then, of course, the Lifetime Contributors induction. Bruce Knapp Sr., who needs no introduction, will be introduced by Richard Myers, who's a Hall of Fame member. Yep. And, of course, Dom Deco Paradise. If you don't know Dom Deco Paradise, he just came in from Mars. Introduced by Scott Smith, who I haven't seen in 40 years. Then, of course, the 2012 induction, Jerry Anderson, class of 1992, a very close friend of your son, Matt. John Nicholson will introduce him and say some glowing words about him.
John was his high school baseball coach.
And a guy that obviously, talk about a local boy doing very well for himself, Joe Avaduti, who I have not seen forever, introduced by Tony Ferrara. And, of course, Joe turned out to be quite the military hierarchy.
Matter of fact, he's coming in this weekend, and he's coming in from Sicily.
That's awesome.
Where he is right now.
That's neat. Is he a captain or
he's a commander.
Commander.
Of a aircraft carrier.
Awesome. Amazing.
Not many people have ever done that.
That's amazing. And, of course, a young lady who I had the opportunity to know growing up, Beth Ann Bradshaw, saw her dad, proud father, Barry, Looking forward to it on Saturday.
I sat with her when she became a member of the Section 5 Basketball Hall of Fame in Rochester also.
Mike Farrar will be introducing her. And, of course, the Rat, Gene Carasillo, will be introduced by my barber, Bobby Carasillo. Gene, of course, a legendary football player.
I never knew that Gene had a first name. I always thought it was the Rat.
So Bobby's going to say a few words. I understand that the other Carasillo that you have the rule against, Cartsy, I understand he was going to introduce, and you guys vetoed that because you guys have to turn the lights off at midnight.
We have the Cartsy rule. And anybody who speaks too long gets the hook.
The hook. And, of course, a guy, as you know, and I know, I haven't seen him since we saw him at Marinos, who went away and did marvelous things, became an executive with Sylvania, has done very well. He's very supportive of the community. He's sent back tons of money and helped out various organizations for years and years and years. And a good friend of mine who I have not seen in forever, Fran Piscatelli.
And he's kind of special also because this will be the first one that's come in that's been actually a teammate of mine.
That's neat.
And I played with him in high school and against him in college. And I'm looking forward to seeing him.
Introduced by Ross Piscatelli.
His son, yes.
Pretty neat. And, of course, the 1985 girls soccer team, John Nicholson, will be introducing that representative.
Yep, I think there's 14 of those girls that are going to make it back, and they're all over the country also. But they're taking the effort to come back for this also.
That was a real special team. Probably one of the best girls teams Mynderse has had in any sport. And actually one of the best teams, period, that's ever been assembled at Mynderse.
So, by the way, we don't want to forget about our friends from Waterloo. Joe Spizzato, the Waterloo Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. Their new class will be inducted same night, same time at Abigail's Restaurant on Routes 5 and 20. Verks, the Mynderse Academy, going to be at the New York Chiropractic College. And, Jimmy, you sent me a schedule of what we're going to be doing as far as our timeline. Why don't you explain to the audience what our plans are right now?
Now, a lot of people, around the country that may be hearing this don't really know what to expect.
Sure.
So, what I want you to do if you want to, look in on this event is get yourself a snack.
Right.
Get yourself in front of the computer a little before 7 o'clock.
Right.
Go to fingerlakes1.com and look for the link to the live webcast of the Mynderse Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Click on that, and it'll load, and you'll be watching. It'll be like you're there in the audience. You can also watch on your television if you want to be a little more comfortable on the couch. You can hook your laptop up to the television, or if you have an internet-enabled television, you can watch it on TV. But what's going to happen is about 7 o'clock we're going to come on. We're going to start with Weber interviewing past inductees or other local luminaries as they enter the Delavan Theater at New York Chiropractic College, kind of like a red carpet type of deal that you might see. So that'll be interesting, and you'll get to see a lot of faces that maybe you haven't seen a lot and hear a lot of people. I think if you're a Mynderse grad or a Seneca Falls native, you really are going to enjoy that portion of the night to start off our webcast. And then when the ceremony starts, we're going to turn it right over to the program that's scheduled, and you're going to hear from every speaker.
Right.
And then, is there an intermission at all during this?
No.
Okay. No intermission.
Not unless Coach gets up.
And then, we may cut back to Harold every now and then. And then, when it's over, we're going to go back to Harold to lead us out. And, may or may not have another interview or two, depending on how things shake out as people leave the theater. But it'll be about a 3-hour webcast. And, I really think that if you've never watched anything like this, which a lot of people who may have an interest in something like this haven't, I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. So I would make a point at 7 o'clock on Saturday to plan your night around it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because I tell people this is the closest I'll ever get to being inducted in the Hall of Fame. And Verk, I know you were the deciding vote to allow me to come in and interview some of my former graduates of Mynderse who have made it in, and maybe haven't made it in, but may make it in down the road. So personally, I'm looking forward to being there and being a part of this since the only thing I remember about Mynderse, Verk, was running from the school after the final bell, running to Marinos to shoot pool. I was a track star for 2 weeks. You know the Weber story. I did broadcast a lot of games there, but, as far as the Weber academics was never a picture that you guys could look at on paper. So If you're looking for someone to support me for possible nomination, it will be 0 across the board. But I'm looking forward to it because it should be fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing people that I haven't seen. Hopefully George Valiceni will be there.
He will be.
I'm looking forward to seeing. I haven't seen George since Marinos. I mean, some of these guys go back a long time with us, and you and me have known each other forever. So,
one more thing on the webcast.
Right.
Also going on this weekend on the Finger Lakes 1.TV network, we have the 31st Lap podcast, the popular local motor racing podcast. They have scheduled live pre-race and post-race shows from Super Dirt Week starting Thursday night in Brewerton, and then Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Friday night at the fairgrounds in Syracuse, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, and then directly after the Hall of Fame ceremony around 10 o'clock, they're coming on with another post-race show, and then Sunday's pre-race, post-race show for the big race. I mean, I don't know a lot about the local racing scene, but these guys are going to be on it all weekend long. So
that's great for the racing buffs.
So we got a lot going on.
Well, Rod, you got the the butterflies working. You got everything figured out. Everything's in place, and it's just a matter now for the crowd to show up.
This is a tough week.
I know.
And I can't leave, or I would be remiss if I didn't mention my committee. They are the best. I've done a lot of things before, and I've worked on a lot of committees, and these people are terrific. And I want the people of Seneca Falls to know that they put in a lot of time and effort. Nothing goes untouched that isn't thoroughly done.
Right.
And I'm very proud of these people.
Let's run them down. I
do have the program right here.
I know you do. So do I.
I do have a slight case of Alzheimer's. Our committee, which is very good: Lisa Carasello Anderson, John Capacci, Ted Novak, Liz Beck, Tony Ferrara, John Nicholson, and Pete Wormuth. And they are unbelievable. And when you get there on Saturday night to see the awards that we give them and the plaques, and the Liz Beck and Ted do a great job of naming the people and putting their accomplishments on the plaques. Butch Akionis does our plaques for us, does a great job. We gave him some real tests this year as far as things that we had to put on the plaques, and they're great people to work with.
That's awesome. Great. Well, let me go to Paul. Paul, I know we can't leave this show without talking about the racing. I know you follow racing. It's the Chase. Brad Keselowski looks like now he could be the slight favorite to win this thing, even though, there's 7 to go. And were you able to watch any of the Vroom Vroom over the weekend?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's tough to go into any sports after this, because it would have been good to end the show with the Hall of Fame thing, as he went down and explained this. This is a lot of nostalgia for you. Just a chance to touch faces or voices with a lot of people that you haven't seen in the past, that you might have watched play or played with or anything like that. And I think that I've been to 3 or 4 different Hall of Fame dinners, including Waterloo, including Geneva, and different places like that. And it seemed to be, there's a song out there by Vanessa Williams, "You Saved the Best for Last." I think when they got into this, and this is their 3rd year, and I don't know what the other ones are, some are probably getting up close to 20s now, aren't they? Would you say Geneva? Like that. They did this, and every year he says we're trying to move forward and trying to make it better, and it's already probably the class of Hall of Fames. So I really appreciate the effort of your committee and what you've done here, because there's a touch of class to it. And when you have people coming from overseas,
pretty neat
to make it, and you have people, you're going to have podcast, and for people who just can't make it for whatever reason, you're going to have them seeing these faces. It just lights me all up and everything like that. And from that we go to boogity boogity boogity, let's go racing. I don't know how you do that. I mean, it's the continuation of the slaughtering of Danica Patrick's reputation by Harold Weber, which is some personal vendetta. I mean, I told a lot of people, how we ever get away with that, being across from the Women's Hall of Fame with this podcast. It's amazing Jim's studio hasn't been burnt to the ground. Thank God the women have more patience than the men. But anyway, that failed. They tried to NASCAR in the last couple of years. They've been suffering a little bit, so they tried to do the Danica Patrick show, and they tried to do different things. But what I like about it is, I think Rod explained it in football. It's you try to get through the season, you try to make it to the dance, and then you get on a hot streak and you go. And last year that was evidence with Tony Stewart. And what he did when he got into the Chase and won 4 races and just ran away with it. And there was Hendricks there with with Jimmy Johnson and all those people that they brought in, Junior, and now Casey Kane. And there's three. Actually, they say after 3 races, there's 3 people that got a shot, and that's Denny Hamlin, and that would be Jimmy Johnson.
And
Keselowski's won 2 out of 3 races, which gives him some good numbers. But it's sad to see it get to that point and then see Jeff Gordon eliminated after 3 races. He's way down. And Junior, who had the year, who was leading in points for a long time, he's almost eliminated. So the Hendricks Motor thing failed as far as building. I don't think you're going to see dynasties in sports anymore because of people wanted to see parity, and now they got it. And so you don't have any baseball teams winning 100 games anymore. The Cleveland Indians and the New York Yankees in the 50s both won 100 games and 154-game schedule.
Right.
That's asking people to play at a 600-plus level, 625, and that was done for some reason. But then they started saying, well, teams that are doing that are running away with the game, and so we've got to do something. And you watch the NFL, and you watch the parity this year in the teams. You watch Arizona coming out of the desert to be 4-0.
Right.
I mean, and they didn't even know who their quarterback was. It was some Skelton that probably was on a shelf for Halloween, and he was quarterbacking. And then Kevin Cobb, I don't know where he goes and what he does, and no running game, and this and that. They're 4-0. Of course, they will get beat tomorrow night by the St. Louis Browns. We've got they brought in sat at a fantasy draft with an 80-year-old guy that said, what you do is you draft your kicker in the 18th round, and you draft a college kicker that's used to kicking the ball 65 yards. And doesn't last week some kid named Zugerlin or something for St. Louis kicks 5 field goals, 63, 57, 48. I mean, the guy just booms the ball. They have to go out of the stadium to retrieve it, But St. Louis will win tomorrow night, so go for the Ram fans. I followed the Rams once. It was Bob Waterfield, Crazy Legs Hirsch,
Norm Van Brocklin.
Van Brocklin, Deacon Jones. That's the last time I followed the Rams, and so that's that. But and the racing is pretty much. I'm a little disappointed in it, but I'm going to root for Brad Keselowski because he's not part of a big team and he's not anything like that. So,
and Paul, you're right about my prediction. I picked the USA to win the Ryder Cup. They led by 4 points going to singles,
and I know
it's never been done before where a European team on American soil had ever come back from 4 down.
Yeah,
and they just totally the Americans collapsed. And
I don't know much about golf, and you guys didn't want to talk about it because it was a slap in the face for the USA. But when they decided not to play that kid in the afternoon of the second day, who was on a euphoric high, who could have beat
anybody,
you could have sent him out with 2 guys, and he would have beat both the guys. I mean, he was on fire, and I guess. But I would have. They decided that it was his turn to go to the bench.
I would have sent Phil out. Phil wanted to take a break. I would have said, Phil, you're one of our horses. You're playing good. You and Bradley are teaming up. Salt and pepper.
I've watched a lot. I watched the Super Bowl. I watched the Final Four. I watch everything. There's nothing more tough to watch than the Ryder Cup.
Right.
Yeah.
Every stroke
is amazing.
It's just tense.
I know.
So much pressure on each individual.
But
because those guys are playing. Yeah. They are playing for the country, and that's a lot of pressure. But I think what's more pressure is than even playing for their country is they're playing for the other guys on their team and for their captain, their peers, and nobody wants to let the other guys down. And it's so obvious. Like, look at Jim Furyk. It is so obvious that he let everybody down. There's nowhere to hide. There's no one else to blame.
Verk, you talk about Weber picking on Doug Marrone continuously and hammering like Danica, like Paul brings up, and I admit I do that. But in the post Ryder Cup, I was telling Jim the news conference. It's on video. It's on YouTube. Furyk, who's had, he's made $4.5 million. Let's not worry about sending him food stamps. Him and Tabitha, but he gags it at Firestone. Had that one. He had the U.S. Open one. Then he hits one in the trees left on the 71st hole. He plays in the Tour Championship, East Lake. Hits one in the water, misses the fairway left by 30 yards, splash, loses that. Loses the crucial 17th and 18th to lose a big point. In the post-news conference, and I don't know the guy's name, it wasn't Harold Weber, asking questions, said he wanted to pose one to Furyk, and Furyk said, go right ahead. He said, Jim, you couldn't bring it home at Firestone, the U.S. Open, East Lake, and here at the Ryder Cup. Is the collapse that you've had this year an individual side of it worse than the team side of it. And Furyk's face turned 3 shades of red and looked at the reporter, who I've yet figured out who it was, said, obviously with that question, you've never been on a team sport. And I mean, you think about me picking on poor Doug Marrone in Seneca Falls, New York, but this is an unbelievable Furyk. He had to feel about that high because they laid the blame at his feet, unfortunately.
Not for nothing.
No.
I take a little offense sometimes with reporters or people that are interviewing people.
Right.
They go back to the Olympics,
right.
And here's a person who's worked literally their whole lives
right.
to do this thing.
Exactly.
They come in second.
Right.
They're second in the world.
In the world.
And this announcer is saying, how does it feel to be a loser? They're not losers.
No.
And Furyk the same way. Stricker had a tough time.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get there.
Right.
And they're giving their best effort. If everybody could compete at their best level every day,
right.
there would be teams that would win for years.
Right.
There would be individuals that would.
It would be boring.
And it just doesn't happen.
Well,
there's too many good players around.
That's right. Paul, you got any wrap-up comments before we put an end to this, baby?
No, I just like to say enjoyed the show very much. I'm looking forward to the induction ceremony Saturday night, and been good. It's been good.
If you missed our comment earlier in the show, the Doug and Pauly show will end as of Halloween this month. There's 4 more shows after today. I won't be here. Good news for you viewers. The next 2 weeks, Pauly and Jimmy will crank up something to talk about, I'm sure. But I'll be back on the 24th, and we'll do the final 2 shows, and then we will put a gift wrap on there. But Verk, you and me have known each other a long time. We've been very close friends in our families. I must tell you that looking at the induction ceremonies, I'm looking forward to being there with Jim on Saturday at the college, but I also noticed there's one name that's been omitted, and it's your name. And I know you're a humble guy. I know you don't want to talk about this, but I think it's a disservice that I don't see the name Rod Verkey very soon in there. Because if anybody deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, it's you, buddy.
Well, we did talk about this this year also. And it has always been my personal philosophy that I'm on the committee and I don't really want to be involved in it. And I would much rather see other people go. I get a great satisfaction.
I understand that.
But we had a meeting this year, and several of the members made a couple points to me, and I took it to heart. Number one is that it couldn't be a Hall of Fame until perhaps I got in it. And
exactly.
I don't know if I agree with that or not.
I do agree with it.
It's putting them in a bad position because I'm not in. And then Tony Ferrara said the deciding factor to me. He said, your mom's not going to be alive forever. And I agree with that. So next year, I believe I will.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, long overdue. And we look forward to it. So great job. And FingerLakes1.com looks forward to being there Saturday night along with myself and Jimmy Senecropi. We'll have some fun talking to some of my old friends. And me and Verk, how many days do we age ourselves? The only time I remember seeing some of these guys up until Saturday night will be Marino's Pool Hall.
I know it.
That goes back a long time.
That was the meeting spot.
It was. We had a lot of laughs. Running down Sunday mornings to play the tickets. That's always one of the memories of my memory.
That was illegal.
But we still did it. But who cares? Hey, guess who bought Mary's engagement ring when we got engaged? Marino.
You got your deal?
Got me a deal. I needed a ring. Making $30 a week at Goulds. Where am I going?
It's obvious to see
he could get anything.
It's obvious to see that a lot of great graduates of Mynderse moved on from Marinos, and it's nice to know that if it opened up tomorrow, Harold would be the first guy going through the door. Wouldn't you say, Rod?
I would.
And Verk would be the second
first
one.
Guy in there, so.
He'd be the second one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've had a good time. So, again, thank you very much, Rod, for taking time out of your busy schedule. Look forward to a spectacular night this Saturday.
Thank you, and we'll see you Saturday night.
All right. So, folks, it's always a slice, and we'll continue to have our back and forth on Syracuse, as we always do. Take care, everybody. It's always a slice having you with us here on the Dog and Pauly. This is the Dog along with
Pauly Show.
Take care, everybody. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.